Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming together and practicing this beautiful Sunday in September, the year 2024. The title of this talk is, I Need a Purpose. Is that true? This weekend, a number of people from the Sangha, about 20, including some people who come here on Sundays, are at a retreat at the Oregon coast. It's called Oceans of Compassion. And it's a weekend meditation retreat, which coincides with the Solve beach cleanup. And some of you who are longtime Oregonians may know about Solve. It's an organization that's been around for a long time, and they sponsor a twice yearly beach cleanup from the Washington border to the California border. And so this retreat is, we rent a meeting hall that's on site at Beverly Beach State Park, which is in the central coast. There's meditation, yoga, camping, eating together. They'll even make s'mores sometimes. There's some silence, but it's lots of fellowship. It's more about Sangha being together and responding together with our practice to participate in this particular way of responding to difficulty in the world. In this case, it's the plastic and junk that washes up on the beaches. So we find lots of trash, more and more microplastics, or not quite microplastics. You find floats, net floats, fishing floats with Japanese writing on them. Come a long way. So the origin story of this retreat is we've been doing it for 6 years, and it really came from inspired by one of our teachers here, Jomon. And she's always been, one time she and I went to the coast on a camping trip, and it happened to coincide with the beach cleanup. And we had the experience of walking on the beach and picking up all kinds of things. And as a result of that, our experience was one that it felt good to just do something about something that we care about. The second thing is it was actually very meditative activity to just be on the beach with the ocean, sounds of the ocean, and to just be completely concentrated on this very simple thing. And at the end of it, the beach is cleaner. You're there with a bunch of people, other people who care about this same thing. And it was just a wonderful experience. And so she thought, I'd like to bring this to the community as something that we might do together. Now for her, one of the things that she had really decided is that out of all the issues with the challenges that the earth has in all kinds of ways, that the thing that she really cared about is the ocean, not to the exclusion of other things, but that's what really inspired her, was she would read about it, and she once read a book that tracked the origin of a shoe that washed up on the California coast, and the author basically traced this shoe all the way back to Asia, where it was manufactured, and then it's like, how did this thing arrive here? So she's always been inspired by that, and so the notion being in this case is that following our own inclination can be very clarifying in terms of what do we do, how do we respond. And in a way, there's a lot of trust, as we've talked about it together, her, the way that she thinks about it is that other people care about the salmon and we'll take care of them. We'll take care of the salmon. Other people care about the birds and they will show up for the birds. And I care about the ocean, so I will show up for the ocean. And then bring it into practice and help share that with other people. So the other part of that is we don't have to do it alone. So I need to have a purpose to my life. What is my purpose? So one of the residents here asked recently this question: what is the difference between a purpose and a vow? What is the difference between a purpose and a vow? We talk a lot about vows here. The monastery is named Great Vow. We have Jizo's vow. The Great Vow is Jizo's vow. Jizo is the bodhisattva that is the archetypal spirit of this place of practice. Jizo makes a big vow to help guide other beings out of suffering realms into a place of wisdom and compassion. So many of us come to practice, come to the monastery. When we come to practice, we may consider, what is my purpose? And this is especially true at times of transition. It could be the transition from into adulthood, or after school, after marriage, transition from job, or transition from feeling like we're in alignment in our life to feeling out of alignment in some way. And so we can ask this question, and there's a lot in the discourse about finding one's purpose. What is my purpose? So what are some of the assumptions in that question? I need to have a purpose. I want to have a purpose. I need to know my purpose. Well, that assumes I need to have one. The assumption is I need to have a purpose. Is that true? So if I ask you, what is your purpose? What's your purpose? And close your eyes and look. What's your purpose? So what do you notice about that experience? Anxiety, resistance, negativity. So for a lot of us, you may notice if there's anxiety or confusion or resistance, or even just a pulling away, that's a stressful thought. And for us in our practice here, a stressful thought is not something to push away or get rid of or stuff or cut off or disown. It is worth investigating. So a foundational teaching or observation from the Buddha is that human beings have difficulties. Is that okay? You with me? Difficulties? Anyone here not? I have difficulties. Stress in the house? Okay, all right, thumbs up back there. Thank you. So the first noble truth, often called, that it's to live a human life is to experience difficulty. suffering, stress, but not just these sort of overt kinds of suffering. It's a pretty strong word. The Buddha was pointing to something beyond that, more of a sense of pervading dissatisfaction. Something is off, a kind of grating. And the original word is dukkha. And the origin of that original Indian word, dukkha, is, the origin of that is like a cart axle that doesn't quite work. So if you imagine it, you're at Fred Meyer and you get the cart and you're pushing it and it has the wheel that bangs the whole time down the aisle. Bang, 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 bang. Or jiggling and shaking. That's not suffering, but it's really irritating. It can be. It can also be music. But so we're talking about that sort of sense of dissatisfaction. Something feels off. And what the Buddha is saying is like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're human. The second is that there's a source of this. It's not just because we're human. It's because of the way that we're human and relate to reality. That the source of most, I'll just say most, of our dissatisfaction or dis-ease is here. It's in the mirror. It's me. It's the way that we relate to how things are, the way things are, is the source of our lack of ease. This is called the second noble truth, or let's call it the second observation. Because this isn't a truth. You didn't come here, especially those of you who are here for the first time, welcome, to pick up a bunch of beliefs. It's not what we're here for. You're invited to learn a practice of observation and inquiry into these particular teachings or these observations. So everybody already observed that there's stress and dis-ease, grating, dukkha. The second is that it's here. And so that's something that we learn to practice, to discover for ourselves. So one of the Buddha's teachings is that the way that we relate to the way things are that creates this dukkha is through clinging and aversion. So trying to hold on to stuff that we like. Oh, I want to keep this. Really like this. Or pushing away what we don't like. I don't like this person, they're really annoying. I don't like this traffic that I'm stuck in. I don't like this song that's on. I don't like this food that they're serving. Aversion. It's kind of pushing away the way things are. And this can happen in very, very subtle ways. So this activity of the mind, of clinging and aversion, creates this suffering. We try to get what we don't have that we think will fulfill us. I don't have this, so clinging is to I'm going to go seek that. The right job, just the perfect job. The right relationship, the perfect relationship. The person who will agree with me all the time. The right body. See online, here's all these different ways that there's actually just a very narrow view of what this body ought to look like, and it doesn't, and so I need to try and get that body. The right foods, if I eat the right foods, that will fulfill me. The right purpose, I get the right purpose. The right to-do list management system, that will stop my job stress. I will tell you I've tried umpteen different apps to get the perfect to-do system so that I actually do my work and not procrastinate. Turns out it wasn't the apps. It's right here. Tried them all. Turns out the only one that really works for me is a pen and notebook paper. After literally decades. Turns out it's here. So what are we resisting when we push things away? So we talked about things that we want to get. What are we resisting? Well, one big one, the big one that is change, impermanence. It's one of the truths, one of the foundational teachings. You don't need to be taught. It's just the way things are. Things are constantly changing. And you can just observe this in your life. You can observe this in your body. And in a way, thank goodness things are changing. If we just did the in-breath, that would be bad if it was only the in-breath. We need the out-breath. Thank goodness things are changing all the time. So you can see that for yourself. And part of it is like that you don't need to be convinced about that. You know things are changing, and that's why there's resistance and clinging to try and hold on to things the way they are. Because we know that things will change. So our worry is that things will change in a way from the way that we like them to the way that we don't know what it is and probably will be bad. Probably be in a way I don't like it. So that creates a lot of anxiety about sort of thinking about all the different, not only the different scenarios about how the way that I like this thing will change, but how all the strategies I can have to meet those different things. Like, well, it might change in this way, so here's what I'll say in that situation, or here's what I need to do. So this is the activity of the dissatisfied, stressed out mind that the Buddha is talking about. That activity is the source of the mind's dis-ease. So when we are in resistance to the truth that things are constantly changing, and are also not in line with the truth that our ability to affect things is also is limited. We actually can't control what other people think of us. We actually can't control much about what other people do. So things are constantly changing. I really know deep inside I don't have a lot of power to affect it. And so that is a recipe for spending a lot of time thinking about how to prevent this other thing in the future from happening when our life is actually right here. We could enjoy the thing that we have. It hasn't changed yet necessarily. But we spend a lot of time in the future worrying about how things are and when our life is right here. So we're just like miss our life. So thoughts, maybe they are the problem. So we've identified there's these thoughts are happening, and the thoughts about clinging and I want and aversion. So thoughts, maybe I need to get rid of my thoughts. I'll come to Great Vow Zen Monastery and figure out how to turn off my thoughts. I'll listen to some apps. Figure out how to get rid of my thinking. Zone out. Let me figure out a way I could zone out a little bit. So that's not quite right either, because that is just the mind of aversion to your thoughts. So that is relating to your thoughts from a place of aversion, which is just more suffering. We already covered that part. So now we're applying aversion to our thoughts. So it's not so much that thoughts are the source of the stress. It's the way that we relate to certain thoughts. It is believing thoughts, especially stressful ones. We especially believe stressful thoughts, like the inner critical voice. You have maybe inner criticism or judgment. So the inner critical voice is, I'm failing, I can never do it right, outer judgmental thoughts. They're wrong, they're dumb, they're ignorant. Righteous thoughts of, if they do it this way, my way, then I'll be happy and the world will be better. So these thoughts are not the enemy. They are a way into inquiring about the relationship that we have with these thoughts. And so we can decide whether or not to believe them. Because a lot of these thoughts that we believe aren't true. Or they're not the whole truth. They're partially true. So these are a few observations that I've given you this morning. So the Buddha was really clear. Don't take it because I said it. Test it for yourself. So here's one way that we like to test thoughts in our here, which is the 4 questions that are used by Byron Kate, who's an author and spiritual teacher who has a particular way that she inquires into thoughts. And so I thought we might do this with this question of, I need to have a purpose. So she has 4 questions, so we'll do the first question. I need to have a purpose. Is that true? I need to have a purpose. Is that true? Maybe we'll answer that yes. Maybe for us, we really do think, I need to have a purpose. There's nothing wrong with that thought. This is not trying to say, don't have that thought, or your thought is wrong. We're just trying to have, what is the relationship to this thought? So then the second question, so the first question of Byron Kate is, with a thought that stresses us out, is it true? So an intercritical thought could be, this talk is going so-so. Is that true? Yes or no? The second one is, can I absolutely know that this thought is true? So 100%. Can I absolutely know that this is true? This talk is no. So can I absolutely know I have to have a purpose? Can I absolutely know that it's true? This thought is true. I have to have a purpose. I need to have a purpose. 100%. Look inside. I need to have a purpose. So then this third of the 4 questions is, how do you react when you believe that thought? I need to have a purpose. I need to find my purpose. So when I believe that thought, I need to have a purpose. Well, I'm worried. What will happen if I don't find my purpose? I ruminate about how am I going to find it. I compare myself to others and find lack. Others know their purpose. I look around and see all these people who know what their purpose is, and I don't know it. Uh-oh. I need to start thinking about how I'm going to get a purpose. Compare ourselves to others. Restless. I need to figure this out. I need to get a move on. Not finding my purpose where I'm at. I need to go to another place so I can find my purpose. I need to talk to some other people. The question is, how do you react when you believe that thought? Well, when I have that thought, I need to have a purpose. When there's a sense of self there, solo, what is my purpose? Need to have a justification, reason for my existence. Purpose can be, this is my function. It's a very functional way looking at our existence. When we think about purpose, what is your purpose? So what is the purpose of this? So what is the purpose of a tree? What is the function of a tree? There are things that trees do. You can look out and see. But what is their purpose? So when we think about the purpose of a tree, we think about utility things. Oh, a tree is for shade, a tree is for lumber, a tree is for... Those are all functional things. But a tree isn't a... trees don't come into... They're able to be... They're able to function in those ways, but is that the purpose of a tree? It is, I guess, in one aspect. But the true purpose of a tree, it's more than just its function. A tree is more than just lumber. A tree is more than just shade. It's more than just its function. What is the function of a dog? What is the function of a dog? Now, dogs have jobs, and some dogs have jobs, right? But the function of a dog is beyond more than what it does, right? So when I think about purpose, the purpose of a dog is what? We would never ask that question. What is the purpose of a dog? But we ask ourselves, like, what's my purpose? What is the purpose of a cat? Sort of the same thing. So who would you be without that thought? So when we believe that thought, we think about it's ruminating, we're stressed out, get a little quiver about, and we compare. So who would you be without that thought? I need to have a purpose. Without that thought, what do you notice? What do you notice when you don't think about, I need to have a purpose? Without that thought. Without that thought, there's some openness, relaxation, sense of the present. So this is a way that we can look at this question of purpose or any thought. As Byron Katie teaches, when a stressful thought arises, we can use these 4 questions to just kind of look at them without believing them. Again, it's the relationship that we have reality that stresses us out. And that relationship becomes screened through believing thoughts. And when we believe certain thoughts that stress us out, we should at least inquire, is this actually true? So where does meditation come into all this? Aren't I supposed to clear my thoughts? So one is, again, we don't want to be in an aversive relationship with thoughts. That's more suffering. Aversion, second noble truth. And 2 things. One is, it is through meditation that we can see the mind's habits of reactivity that's happening, what thoughts we might be believing, especially through meditation, we can notice inner criticism or judgment or comparison. An inner critical thought for the beginning meditator and the advanced meditator is, I'm not doing it right. Right? That's a suffering thought. You can let that go. Inquire into it. I'm not doing it right. Is it true? Yes. Can I absolutely know that it's true? No. Because I don't. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Who would I be without? How do I react when I believe that thought? I'm not doing it right. Well, one is I'm concentrating more on how I'm not doing it right than I am my meditation or the breathing that I want to be noticing. And then the other part of that is the other part about that is then I notice anxiety. I notice I don't want to do this. So who would I believe without that thought? I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing this meditation right. Oh, I might be curious. What's happening? Maybe I am doing it right. So we can see the mind's habits of reactivity and disentangle ourselves from our thoughts. That's one of the parts of meditation. The other part is that we've spent a lot of time talking about thinking. And Bansho is saying, well, don't push away your thoughts. Don't be aversive to your thoughts. Well, what about this clear mind? So the other part of meditation is we're able to expand our relationship with what is happening to not just include the thinking aspect of our mind. We have a whole other great, vast vista of what the mind can do, which is what the mind has access to, tune into, align with, and that is awareness. So if we're aware of thoughts, what is it that surrounds thoughts that allows us to be aware of it? Aware of color and form and sounds. So through meditation practice, through stilling the body and relating not so much of our relationship to our life up here, but beginning to include more and more of the moment-by-moment experience of the body, which is in the present, instead of the mind, which is off into the future, thinking about this purpose I gotta go get. One of the things that happens is the mind shifts more and more into awareness mode and is less entangled with or stuck into relating to our experience through thoughts. So we are able to rest more and more in awareness. And what can happen is as thoughts begin to actually settle down, and the mind can become quite clear, and there are not a lot of thoughts. Now, so that is a clear mind without a lot of thoughts, especially stressful thoughts. Thoughts may bubble up, and then the mind can become very, very quiet. But that didn't happen through fighting thoughts and cutting them off and being averse to them. It's opening up to our wider experience of life. So I would propose to you a little bit of semantics, that purpose is a noun and vow is a verb. I'd like to consider them as purpose as noun, vow as a verb. The purpose is I'm going to do this, be this. So a vow, so here at Great Vow, we look a lot at vow. Also, you might think about it as what is your heart's aspiration? Or another way to look at this is how do you want to be? Instead of what do you want to be? How do you want to be in the world? Our teacher Chozen has a wonderful book called Vow-Powered Life. which has a lot more about this and some real exercises if you become inspired to discern about vow. A lot of things that you can do to inquire into this for yourself. So what is a vow? The way that Chosen defines it in her book is the word vow represents the actual power of a bundle of energy purposefully formed, aimed, and propelled through time. Energy purposefully formed, aimed, and propelled through time. So a vow is more about the journey than the destination. It's an orientation. It's what direction do I want to head? And how do I want to be as I walk that way? So sometimes we inherit vows. Sometimes we inherit vows from our families, for example. And we can look at that, do some of that work in the vow book. What was important in your family, especially your parents. Sometimes we took that up. In my family, education was really important. So I did what it took to become educated, certainly supported by my family. Both my parents spent their time in different ways of service. My mother was a nurse, emergency room nurse, and my father was in the Air Force. And then, so those aspects came into me around service. But it doesn't always align up. I didn't join the military. I am wearing a uniform though. That stayed the same. My parents had a vow to nurture family. It was very important. Now they did it like all parents, very imperfectly. Not very, but imperfectly. But I didn't become a parent. But that caring for family manifested in different ways. When I was in the union and did union work, union organizing work, the union was my family. I really related to that as family. And now my Zen work is Zen family. And I've inherited vows from my teachers and from the Zen lineage. And after doing this practice, I can really see that. Sometimes we have reactive vows. So talking about parents, sometimes it's like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to do this other thing. And that can be useful too, including, if your family was dysfunctional, you may give a reactive vow not to be, and to learn all you can to not carry that forward. So in a way, for me, that's a reactive vow because of some of the dysfunctional things in how I grew up. And that all got to be transformed into wisdom that can then be shared. I'm grateful for that experience, to be able to transform it into something useful. Sometimes there's impossible vows. In fact, that's a great one to make. And at the end of this, we'll chant, just a few minutes, we'll chant the 4 Bodhisattva vows, which are impossible vows. And again, that's orienting ourselves in a certain direction. So then when something comes up in our life and we think, should I do this or not? It's like, we can then just say, is it in alignment with my vows? My vows take me this way. So 2 questions as you think about vows. One is to think about this inquiry as, what do you love? You want to think, well, what's my vow? I don't know. I don't know my vow. So my first question to you is, what do you love? In Jomon's case, it was the ocean. Some people, it's their kids or grandkids, animals, The other question is, how do you want to love? How do you want to be as you love? So one of the vows of Jizo that we have in our ceremony is, I vow to welcome everything that comes towards me with a warm and undefended heart. That's not a purpose. It's like, how do I want to be? So then I don't have to get my life to fit this certain thing. I just need to live. I want to live in this way and orient myself in that way. The other part of that is, the other vow is, I vow to see and nourish the seeds of awakening in everyone I meet. I vow to see and nourish the seeds of awakening in everyone I meet. That's how do I want to be. That's a vow of how I want to be. And then I can do it. Then it's not off in the future. It's always right here. I can always do that. Everyone I meet gives me an opportunity to fulfill my vow. So these kinds of vows, how do I want to be, can be quite powerful. So how do we want to be? How do you want to be? What do you love? I invite you to consider your vows. What are your vows? And my sincere wish is that you discover your vows and that they be fully realized. And that we always end that we do this, we realize our vows together. Because the other part about all of this is we can't do it alone, that why would we even want to? That we are embedded in a network of relationship, and that our vows are part of that great interconnection. So thank you all. May your vows be fully realized together.